It started with a soft knock. Not on the front door, not on the walls, beneath the floorboards. I almost didn't hear it the first time. I just moved into the house a week prior, a creaky Victorian two-story buried in a sleepy corner of upstate New York. The kind of place that people said had character, but really meant, you'll spend your life savings fixing the damn thing. I was mid-renovation, trying to turn the rot and dust into something livable. That afternoon I'd been ripping up the cracked tile in the kitchen when my crowbar slipped between two boards and clanked against something metal. It wasn't a pipe. I knelt down, fingers scrabbling away decades of dirt and splinters until I uncovered a small, iron ring embedded in the wood. A latch. Something about it felt wrong immediately. It wasn't on any of the blueprints I'd found in the town archives. There was no mention of a basement. The house was supposed to have a crawlspace, nothing more. I hesitated, then pulled. A hatch creaked open, releasing a puff of stale, cold air that smelled like wet concrete and something faintly sweet. Like candy left to rot. Beneath the hatch, stairs. Old, narrow, descending into blackness. I fetched my flashlight and shone it down. Dust danced through the beam like tiny silver insects. The air felt colder the closer I leaned, and I swear, God help me, I heard something shuffle below. I should have closed it then. Nailed it shut and walked away. But curiosity's a hell of a drug. I grabbed my flashlight and started down. One step at a time. Each creak underfoot echoed too loud, like the space below was amplifying the sound, eager to swallow me whole. At the bottom, I found a door. A child's door. Bright red, paint chipped, small enough that I'd have to crouch to pass through. Scribbled in marker across the top, my room. Keep out. I'm a grown man, rational and grounded. I design buildings. I don't scare easily. But standing there, flashlight flickering, breath fogging the air in that freezing little corridor, I realized something that made my skin crawl. That handwriting? It looked exactly like mine when I was a kid. I crouched low, heart thudding in my chest, and pushed the child-sized door open. The hinges groaned like they hadn't moved in a lifetime. Beyond it was a room, small, square, and perfectly preserved, like someone had sealed it off decades ago and just stopped time. There was a single light bulb dangling from the ceiling, casting a weak yellow glow. The walls were covered in crayon drawings. Hundreds of them, layered one over another like a child had never run out of paper, only space. Rainbows. Trees. A crooked dog. A house that looked too much like mine. And faces. Dozens of them. All drawn with exaggerated smiles and wide, staring eyes. But one in particular caught me dead cold. Near the far wall, in the center of a drawing of the house, my house, was a figure standing at the second-floor window. It was me. The face was mine. Same beard, same scar above the eyebrow I got during a bike crash at 12. But it was wrong too. The eyes were too wide, too knowing. Like they were watching me even now. I spun around, suddenly convinced someone was behind me. Empty. The only thing in the room aside from the drawings was a tiny bed with a threadbare blanket and an old toy chest sitting at the foot. The name, Ben, was etched into the wood. My name. That's when the bulb above me flickered once, then died, plunging the room into darkness. Then came the rustling. From inside the toy chest. Scrape. Shift. Thump. Something was moving in there. I backed toward the door, but it had closed behind me. I hadn't heard it shut. I reached for it. It wouldn't budge. The scraping grew louder, more frantic. Something inside that chest wanted out. The room had gone utterly silent, except for the scratching. My flashlight, old, clunky, the kind with the big square batteries, was still gripped in my hand, but it refused to flick back on. I smacked it, shook it, nothing. Then the chest lid creaked. Not all at once. Just enough to let out a breath of cold air that smelled like dust and something else, like wet soil and old breath. I held my breath and knelt, pressing an ear to the chest's side. Inside, something shifted again. A whisper. Just one. Ben. My name. Not yelled. Not spoken. Breathed. I stumbled backward, my spine slamming into the far wall. The drawings crinkled beneath me, and as I pressed my hand against one for balance, I realized the crayon was still waxy. Still fresh. I stood, scanned the room for anything, to fight back with, but there was nothing. Just the bed, the chest, the damn drawings. Then the flashlight flickered back to life in my hand. Just for a second. Long enough to see the chest fully open. Empty. I almost laughed. Almost. Until I looked back toward the drawings. They had changed. The figure at the window was gone. No, moved. It was now at the front door of the drawn house. And below it, written in messy, red crayon. I found you. That's when I heard the floorboards creak above me. Footsteps. Someone, was in my house. Upstairs. I shot up the narrow stairs like a man possessed, the flashlight beam jerking wildly as I emerged back into the kitchen. The hatch slammed shut behind me on its own, the metal ring clanging against the wood with a finality that made my skin crawl. Silence. But not for long. Another creak overhead. Just above me now, my bedroom. I stood frozen for a moment, eyes locked on the ceiling as if I could see through it, heart hammering in my throat. I'd left no one in the house. I didn't even have pets. That noise shouldn't exist. I took a step toward the stairs. Another creak echoed back, two this time. Like a slow, careful walk. Deliberate. Hello? My voice cracked. Who's there? Nothing. I moved up, each step screaming underfoot. Halfway to the landing, I caught something in the corner of my eye, a smear on the wall. I paused. Ran my hand over it. Crayon. A red line dragged from the upstairs hallway down to the stairs like a child had run along it, scribbling as they went. The line wasn't there earlier. The line stopped just beside my bedroom door, which was ajar. I approached slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand. The door creaked as I nudged it open further. Nothing. No one. Until the beam of light caught the far wall. Another drawing. This one newer than the rest. Still drying. It was me, lying in bed. And above the drawn bed, a crude figure. Not me. Something taller. Darker. Watching. Then, behind me. The unmistakable sound of someone breathing. Just inches from my ear. I spun around so fast I nearly dropped the flashlight. Its beam cut across the hallway, illuminating nothing but peeling wallpaper and that red crayon line, now creeping its way toward the bathroom door like it had grown longer in the seconds I wasn't looking. No one there. But I swear, I felt it. Warm breath. Right against the nape of my neck. Damp, steady. Like someone had leaned in to whisper but changed their mind. I stumbled backward into the room, slammed the door shut, and braced it with my shoulder. The doorknob rattled once, twice, and then stopped. As if whoever, or whatever, was on the other side had decided I wasn't worth the effort. The room was ice cold now. My breath fogged the air. And on the bed? A photo album. I hadn't seen it before. Old leather, warped at the corners, like it had been soaked in water and left to dry. It lay open, as if waiting for me. I approached it slowly, every instinct screaming to leave it alone. But I couldn't. Not now. The first photo was of the house. Decades ago, yellowed grass, older cars, the same porch. The second photo, a family. A man, a woman, a child, maybe 7 years old. The boy was standing on the front steps, grinning. The boy was me. I don't mean he looked like me. I mean it was me. Down to the gap between my front teeth at that age. The scar on my chin. The same shirt I remembered my mom dressing me in one birthday. Except I'd never lived in this house before. I turned the page. More photos. Me playing in the yard. Me standing in the kitchen. Me with the family I didn't recognize, but who looked at me like I belonged to them. And on the last page, something scrawled in shaky red ink. You always come back. Then the photo beneath it, one last picture. Me. Standing in the basement. Staring at the open toy chest. Only this time, something was standing behind me. Tall. Thin. All shadow. No face. Just one hand on my shoulder. I slammed the photo album shut and backed away like it might bite. My knees hit the bed and I sat hard, the mattress groaning beneath me like it, too, disapproved. A whisper crawled from the hallway. Not words. Just movement in voice form. Like the floorboards were trying to hum. I needed out of that room. I flung the door open. Empty hallway. No breath. No creaks. But the red crayon line was gone, replaced by dozens of tiny red handprints smeared along the wall, trailing toward the attic door at the end of the hall. It was cracked open. That door had been painted shut when I moved in. I remembered it distinctly because I'd told myself I'd never bother with the attic. No one ever finds good things in attics. But the crack was there now. Open. Inviting. Or daring. I climbed the narrow steps slowly, heart thundering against my ribs. The attic smelled of cedar and something sickly sweet beneath it, like something trying to hide rot behind perfume. The flashlight beam caught dust motes floating in the thick air. The space was large but cluttered, old trunks, furniture draped in yellowing sheets, boxes with labels faded into oblivion. And at the far end of the attic, propped against the wall, was a mirror. Tall. Ornate. Wrong. It didn't reflect the room behind me. No. It showed the basement. The same child's room. The same toy chest. And me. Standing in it. Even though I was very much in the attic. I moved toward it slowly. My reflection didn't mirror me, it moved on its own, hands rising to wave at me like I was the ghost in its world. I felt a vibration then, deep in my bones, like the floor under me was humming. And in the mirror, the chest began to open again. Except this time, from inside, a face emerged. Mine. Mouth stretched wide in a grin I wasn't making. Eyes locked on mine through the glass. And it spoke, no sound, just lips moving. You're not supposed to be here yet. I backed away from the mirror, heartbeat rattling in my ears. My reflection, the other me, just kept grinning. The longer I looked, the more wrong it became. The eyes were too glassy. The grin too wide. Teeth just a little too many. Then it lifted a finger, index, straight, and pointed upward. Not at me. At the attic ceiling. The same second I followed its gaze, I heard the soft tap. 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 Above me. I stared at the ceiling beams. There wasn't supposed to be anything above the attic. No hidden floors, no crawlspaces. Just roof. But then, a square outline appeared in the dust above me. A trapdoor. My flashlight flickered and died again. The attic went dark. I reached up blindly, fingers finding the edge of the hatch. Cold metal. A small loop to pull it down. Every nerve in my body screamed not to. Every ounce of logic begged to run back down the stairs and board the whole thing up. But I pulled anyway. The hatch dropped open, and a rope ladder unfurled. I couldn't see where it led. Just an abyss beyond the opening, like it pierced through space itself. A breeze came from above, cold, dry, and wrong. It smelled like winter in a grave. Then, a voice, from the mirror behind me. "He's coming." I turned back. The mirror now showed my bedroom. The real one. And in the center of the room, something tall, faceless, and impossibly thin was crawling through the open window. Its limbs bent wrong, like elbows where there shouldn't be elbows. And in the reflection, I was still sitting on the bed. Oblivious. But I wasn't. I was in the attic. So what, was in my bed? I staggered away from the mirror, the attic suddenly tilting like the house itself was leaning toward something. The reflection kept playing, but now it felt like surveillance footage. That creature, whatever it was, loomed over the bed, reaching out slowly with one elongated finger. And the figure in the bed? It turned. Its face was mine. But the expression wasn't fear. It was relief. Like it had been waiting. The creature leaned in, pressed its face, if you could call it that, close to mine. Their foreheads touched. There was a blinding flash in the mirror, and then silence. Nothing in the room. No creature. No me. Just the empty bed, and a single sentence now scrawled across the mirror's surface in foggy letters. One out, one in. I ran. Back down the attic stairs, through the hall, down to the kitchen. Every light in the house was on now, buzzing, flickering like they were straining under some unseen pressure. The walls pulsed with faint thuds, like a second heartbeat hidden beneath the plaster. I burst into the bathroom and stared into the mirror. It was me. But, not exactly. There was a subtle pull at the edges of my face. Like a mask just barely clinging to the wrong bone structure. My eyes, off-center, too dark. I pressed a hand to my chest. Still beating. But slower. So much slower. The house groaned then, a long, low sound that vibrated through the floorboards. And from the kitchen, the hatch door slammed open. The smell of sugar and decay rolled out. And footsteps began to climb the stairs. Something was coming back up. Something that had been waiting for me to open it. I stood frozen in the hallway, the sound of those footsteps rising from below, measured, deliberate, too heavy for a child and too soft for a man. Something in between. Something that didn't need to hurry because it knew exactly where I'd be. I backed away slowly, every board underfoot whining with betrayal. The hatch thudded again. Not closed. Opened wider. I leaned around the corner toward the kitchen. From here, I could just make out the edge of the opening, yawning black in the middle of the floor. The air was different, thicker, like the house itself was holding its breath. And then, something climbed out. It didn't burst or crawl or stumble. It stood. A shape, about my height, maybe taller. Dressed in pale, threadbare pajamas. A child's. The face was lost in shadow, the only visible detail a smear of red across the chest, like a handprint pressed too hard. It turned its head, slowly, and even though I couldn't see its eyes, I felt them lock onto mine. It tilted its head. Same way I do when I don't understand something. Or when I pretend not to. "Ben," it said in my voice, but higher. Younger. My voice at 7 years old. I ran. Upstairs, slamming doors behind me, searching for something, anything, that made sense. I ducked into the guest bedroom and shoved the dresser in front of the door. My fingers trembled as I rifled through drawers, found nothing but old keys and a Bible that wasn't mine. Then the hallway creaked. Not with footsteps. With whispers. They were calling out, overlapping, childlike tones repeating one thing. Let me finish. Let me finish the picture. You left it blank. The doorknob twisted once. Then again. Then, from the other side, a scrape. A crayon dragged slowly down the wood. The scraping stopped. Then, silence. No whispers, no footsteps. I stood still, holding my breath so tight my chest ached, waiting for something, anything, to move. And then the dresser began to shake. Not violently. Just a slow, rhythmic push. Like someone on the other side was pressing in perfect, quiet intervals. Boom. 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 And then a soft thump behind me. I turned. There, on the far wall of the guest room, a drawing was forming. Crayon lines dragging themselves across the wallpaper, as if some invisible hand was sketching it in real time. It was like watching a memory birth itself from nothing. A bed. A door. Me. And standing in front of me, what I'd just seen climb out of the basement. Except now, it had a face. Mine. Again. But melted. Features sagging like wax, mouth drawn in a warped grin that went ear to ear. Then, in oversized red crayon beneath the scene. This is how it ends. The dresser stopped shaking. I turned toward the door just as the lights in the house all died at once. Darkness swallowed the room. My flashlight flickered weakly, casting long, desperate shadows that danced across the walls. And then, something scraped inside the room. Not from the door. From the closet. The doorknob there turned slowly, almost gently. Then the voice, my child voice again, whispered from within. Don't worry, I remember what you forgot. The closet door began to creak open. The closet door opened no more than 3 inches, but enough to see movement. A pale, twitching silhouette hunched unnaturally, arms too long, spine too straight. The flashlight trembled in my grip, casting its dying beam across a hand emerging from the dark. It dragged something with it. A canvas. Child-sized. Edges frayed. A fresh drawing stretched across it, still glistening with moisture. It showed the basement again. The toy chest. And inside the chest, me. Folded, broken, like a puppet shoved into a box. The figure in the closet didn't step out. It slid. One leg, then the other, until it stood fully in the open, clutching the canvas to its chest like it was sacred. Its face was still mine, but, not just younger. Wrong. Like someone had seen my childhood photo and tried to recreate it from memory, blindfolded. It tilted its head. Spoke without moving lips. You left me there. You said you'd come back. I backed toward the window. I don't know you, I whispered. It stepped forward. But I know you. I wore your skin while you grew up. I watched from the floor. I listened. I kept all your secrets. It held out the canvas. You're not the real one anymore. I took the only option I had left. I ran at the window full force and hurled myself through it. Glass shattered. The wind howled. And I landed hard in the overgrown backyard, thorns slicing my arms, cold night air stealing the breath from my lungs. I looked back up at the broken window. Nothing there. Just darkness. But as I scrambled to my feet, something landed softly behind me. And whispered. You brought me home. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. The whisper was too close, curling around the edges of my spine like cold breath in winter. I bolted across the yard, weeds clawing at my legs, the ground uneven and soft as if something underneath had been recently disturbed. I didn't stop running until I hit the tree line. The woods behind the house were overgrown, tangled, and wrong, too quiet, too still. But anything was better than what had followed me out. I made it about 30 feet into the thicket before I realized the night had changed. It wasn't dark anymore. The woods were lit, but not by moonlight. Behind me, my house was glowing. From the inside, every window blazed with an amber light, flickering like dozens of candles. And silhouetted in every frame were children. Small shapes. Standing still. Watching. Each one with my face. Smiling. Then, the trees around me began to shift, subtle, but coordinated. Like something was pressing through the woods, circling me. I turned in a slow, panicked spin. There, between the trees, a face peering out. Mine again. But older. Rotting. Pieces of skin flaked from its forehead like burnt paper. It didn't move. Then another, to the left. And another. Everywhere I looked, I saw some version of me. All staring. All grinning. Then they began to whisper, together this time, voices overlapping. You split us. You left pieces. Let us in. We remember being whole. Something was wrong in my head. Like a memory was trying to fight its way to the surface, punching through ice. Something about the house. Something I'd buried long before I ever bought it. Then I heard it. The final voice. Not from the woods. From inside me. Low. Familiar. Whispering through my own clenched jaw. You never left. I dropped to my knees. Not because I tripped. Not because I was overwhelmed. Because something inside me tugged. It was like my own organs were rearranging, not physically, mentally. Like a thought that had always been there suddenly unwrapped itself from around my brain and whispered, remember. And I did. All of it. Not this version of the house. Not this adult version of me with my toolbox and my renovation plans. But the first time. When I was a kid. When I lived here. The attic. The red door in the floor. The drawings. The rules. Don't open the chest, my mother had once told me, right before she disappeared without a trace. I'd cried for days in that little red room. I'd drawn pictures of her face so I wouldn't forget. But one night, I got lonely. So I opened the chest. And something got out. Something that looked like me. That wasn't me. And then, nothing. Blank. Like someone blacked out that entire part of my childhood. Until I found the hatch again during renovations. Until I set it all in motion. I stood slowly, legs shaking, as all the versions of me stepped closer from the woods. Some were children. Some were adults. Some were other. And behind them, the thing I had set free all those years ago emerged. Tall. Gaunt. My face stretched across its skull like it had been stitched there. It didn't speak. It just opened its arms. And suddenly I understood. This wasn't haunting me. It was calling me home. And I'd brought it enough pieces of myself that it was finally ready to take back what was left. It moved like it had no bones, gliding forward, arms still outstretched, as if expecting a reunion. And I couldn't move. I wasn't frozen in fear. I was being pulled. Like a tether had snapped taut inside me, yanking my soul forward as my feet dragged against the soft forest floor. Every part of me screamed to run, to fight, but the thing that wore my face better than I ever could, kept whispering without speaking. We remember. We waited. It's your turn now. I stumbled closer. The ring of me's, the others, parted to make way, smiling those warped, tooth-heavy smiles. The original. That's what it was. The one I opened the chest for. The one I let loose when I was 7, thinking it would be my friend, not my replacement. And now it wanted to finish the trade. I fell to my knees in front of it. My body shook with the weight of memories I didn't want, my mother screaming as the chest closed, the whispers in the floorboards as I grew up in a different family, the same face but not the same soul. Because I was never whole after that night. It reached out and cupped my face. And it smiled. My vision went white. Then black. Then stillness. I blinked. And I was standing in the forest. Alone. No copies. No whispers. No creature. Just me. But the house, my house, was gone. Not destroyed. Not crumbled. Vanished. Like it had never existed. I stood in the clearing for a long time, trying to figure out if I'd won or lost. And then I heard a knock. Soft. Wood against wood. Beneath my feet. I looked down and saw a small red hatch. The red hatch pulsed faintly beneath the dirt and leaves, like it had a heartbeat of its own. I didn't want to touch it, but my body moved anyway. My hand pressed to the iron ring and it burned, not with heat, but memory. My own. The hatch creaked open, just a few inches. Darkness. Then a single piece of paper fluttered up from the black. I caught it. A child's drawing. Done in red crayon. It was the house again, but not how it looked when I moved in. How it looked when I was a boy. Smoke curling from the chimney. The crooked mailbox. My mom waving from the porch. And me. Drawn twice. One version of me stood at the window. Smiling. The other version, half erased, fading into the trees. And written at the bottom, scrawled in desperate, jagged letters. Only one can stay. Behind me, the wind shifted. I turned slowly. In the middle of the clearing stood me, but not the version from before. This one looked new. Real. Clean. Confused. It stared at me. Where am I? The voice was mine. But younger. Sharper. The trade had happened. Not with the creature. With a version of myself who hadn't broken the rules. It had replaced me, slid into the world, into the life I'd tried to reclaim. And me? I'd been drawn back into the story I started. I looked down at my hands. Small. 7 years old. Again. The woods were silent. The clearing dim. And behind me, the toy chest waited. Still open. Still empty. Still hungry. The end.